Hey, good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast here where I'm at, where it's nice and sunny out there. It's a Friday. I'm looking forward to on November 4th here, maybe getting out and pretending like I can sail by just walking by the water or something. So it's a great day. It's a great day for our topic, 3 feet from gold, federal market success, right? And it's a lot closer than you think. And I'm hoping by the end of today's training that you see it that way as well, right? That you see that there's your future is sitting right in front of you. Let me go ahead and turn this caption off since I left it on yesterday, which is always a fun thing for me. Okay, we're going to get started in just a second. I did want to let you know that just a couple of reminders if you're not tracking on this. If you don't know that we have a LinkedIn group, for those of you who are selling into the Navy, we have a LinkedIn group called the Navy and DIB, Defense Industrial Base. So Navy and DIB group, and we just put a lot of content in there. We're trying to manage that group where it doesn't have a lot of distraction. It just has pure homework content in there. So this is information coming from the Navy that helps you understand them more. So if you don't know about that, go ahead and do that, Russ. Well, that's what happens when you're in Hawaii. It's dark out there, Russ. The other thing is if you're not tracking on some of the material that you have available, go to the govconchamber.com website. I don't know why my little name display thing is not here. I'll see if I can turn it on. There you go. It's got my website at the bottom of the screen. And just go to that website and you can see some downloads we have for directories. For example, directory of small business specialists, SBLO directories, a supplier portal directory, and forecast directory. So we try to keep these things updated for you out there. Okay, so I'm going to get rocking and rolling here. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live federal sales training where I provide success for you, success tips in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow the process A to Z, we're going to have predictable, repeatable success, and that's what I want for you, and that's why we provide this training out there for you. Before we get started, do me a favor, go ahead and put your company name and core competency into the chat. Help me, help buyers, and help the others in the community remember who you are. If we're looking for somebody who does construction or elevator services or cybersecurity, for example, we want to be able to remember who you are. I want to remember for sure. Sometimes we have buyers who come in, but then you have a whole community of people who would love to potentially team up with you. And if you're in this community, I'm just going on the assumption that you're open to connection. If you're not open to connecting, then I would say find another community. That way I don't have to keep asking people, are you open to connecting? Let's just say we're all open to connecting. And when we connect with other people, it's a way for us to figure out how can we help you and how can you maybe help me when I have a need. So go ahead and engage with the community. That is your community. I'll be doing training. That's my focus today. Your focus is to learn that lesson that'll be helpful to you, but also to potentially find teammates. So engage in that community. And then as I go along, I might ask you to put something in the chat that just lets me know you hear and understand me. So please do that as we go forward. Finally, I wanted to thank our sustaining members who make this all possible, everything we do possible. Just a quick thank you. We appreciate you. Okay, let me get rocking and rolling. If you haven't been here before, just a quick intro. I move at a fire hose pace, and what I'm trying to do is deliver content about the how, right? There's always this what do you do? What do you need to do? But then the how, and I'm always trying to drive into the how. And that's what I'm hoping you can get out of this today is writing down a couple of things where you say, you know what, I'm going to go try that how, right? It might be a new skill you're learning. It might be a new approach on a skill you already know. I'm very experienced and I learn from people every single day, right? And so I think all of us can be that same way. Sometimes we're really skilled at this, or we're skilled at this, but hearing from somebody else a different way might help us. So have your pencil and notepad ready to be able to write down that nugget that comes to you. Let me just make sure this stuff's good to go. Okay, so let's get into the meat of this training. So I had a small business reach out to me. They're doing about $20 million a year, not a customer, but they reached out to me because they've seen a lot of stuff I've done. They followed me. And this often happens, right? People follow you, and even your buyers could be following you for years sometimes. It's like, hey, I've been following your content. It's been great. It's like, okay, cool. And so they recently reached out to me doing $20 million a year plus, and they were talking to me about some recent losses they had suffered in the company, opportunities that they had pursued that just came, that they lost it. They didn't win it. And these are all of these opportunities that they have lost are all north of $100 million. So we're not talking small losses here. And so there's obvious concern and impact throughout the whole company and their plans, right? When a sales loss happens in a pipeline that's well managed, often leadership and the rest of the company are kind of counting on those. Not every one of the opportunities to win, but a certain portion. Well, these guys are kind of running into a little bit of a streak of losing, and they're trying to figure out why, because they've got solid experience and skill set, but they're losing. And so one of the things they're doing, though, is that they're looking at the proposal as the fault. And so the company leadership, they're looking at the proposal and saying, what's wrong with the proposal? They're looking at the government saying, the evaluation team, the contracting officer, what did they do wrong? Or how did they treat us unfairly? Things like that, which is natural. I get it. Like sometimes you feel that, but that's not really a learning position to be in, right? That's more of a little bit more reactionary, just brutal honesty, right? And what I said is, so they're looking at the proposal in the government, and they're trying to drive into so much so, what did we do in the proposal that was wrong, right? So they're scouring through the PWS, they're scouring through the RFP, going, well, what did the government say? What did we say? And they're looking at this closely, but that entire activity is really proposal focused. They're putting this entire activity on the proposal team, if you will, or the company's overall proposal effort. And they're also thinking into the government, going, hey, government's treated us unfairly. Maybe we should protest, right? These things that they're doing are I totally get why they're doing it and why they feel like that's a necessary thing to do. But even if they're needed, they're only one portion of looking at your business and saying, why are we not getting what we want, right? Why are we not getting that goal that we're looking for? And so even though they're looking at the proposal and they're looking maybe at the government and saying, hey, did we get checked off the wrong way or something? I believe they're looking in the wrong direction, right? When you look at the proposal, you're kind of blaming the last point in volleyball. So for a lost game, if you don't know volleyball, it's funny. I coach volleyball and I can't remember whether it's 21 or 25 points, but let's say it's 25 points, right? 25 points to win the game. Maybe it's 21, but anyways, 25 points to win the game. What happens, and I used to coach 8-year-old, 10-year-old girls volleyball teams, and the person who missed the last point would get blamed by the teammates. And I was like, stop that. You do not blame the person who lost the last point for why we lost the game. The game was lost because of the 24 points that came beforehand that we had lost. Like, I don't see you blaming that person who lost our first one and our 5th point or something. You get my point, right? They're trying to blame the end of a long cycle. And in volleyball, the cycle is 25 points or whatever. And I'll look to chat for a second to see if I see an answer. But volleyball, it's got all those points, right? And if you blame the end, you're not really looking at what happened in the game, right? Yes, of course, that point was a bad point. But didn't we have bad points the whole way through in order to have lost 25 points? And in government contracting, it's kind of that same thing, right? Is that the proposal is at the very end. And sometimes when we lose or when we win, we give credit to the proposal activity, proposal manager, proposal team. All right, we had a great proposal team. But what about all those people who came way before? What about that person who picked up the phone and went into the government to have a meeting? What about the person, the analyst who found a document and began to read about it? So I'm going to talk to you about this today, because sometimes when we focus on that last point in a volleyball game or on the proposal, it's similar to this story I'm going to tell you about 3 Feet from Gold, of digging in the wrong direction. So if you understand what I'm saying, if you follow that analogy about don't just blame the last point or just at the proposal, do me a favor, in chat, put it's not the last point, right? It's not the last point, something like that. Put that in there. Well, it is 25 points. Good. Okay, so let me switch over. Actually, I want to tell you one other story, and I'm trying to figure out how I can fit this into today's training. But I love this analogy, so I'll tell it pretty quickly, but it kind of aligns, right? There is this great movie called The Replacements, Keanu Reeves, if you're into that kind of movie. But The Replacements, there was this question the coach asked the quarterback of a football team. He said, hey, do you know the difference between winners and losers? And the answer basically came back, which had to wait almost to the end of the game, right? Or the movie. But the answer came back. The difference between winners and losers is when the game's on the line, winners want the ball, right? When the game is on the line, winners want the ball. Give it to me. I'll take this in. And I believe in government contracting, it's the same thing, right? You can think that way heading up to writing a proposal and submitting it, but you can also reverse engineer it, saying, hey, we lost. Let me look at what I could have done, right? And so I'm a salesperson, a BD person, more than I am a proposal writer. How can I grab that ball and say, you know what, we lost. What could I do better? Not to blame myself. I'm not here to blame myself or blame others, right? I'm here to take responsibility and look at that and go, could I improve what I do so the next time we don't lose? So if you understand what I'm talking about when the difference between winners and losers is when the game's on the line, winners want the ball, put in the chat, I'm a winner. And not Neil's a winner, but I'm a winner. You're a winner, right? That's who I want to put in. So as you're doing that, let me tell you a story. Some of you may have heard this story, and it's never, we can never hear it too often, right? This story of 3 feet from gold, and it's the title of today's training, right? 3 feet from gold, federal market success is closer than we think, right? Not just you think, we think. Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich long time ago. And if I had that copy near me, I would show you that it was signed back in the 1800s or whenever I read it the first time. And in that book, he tells this story of a man who left a city out in the East Coast because he heard about the gold rush, and he rushed out to the West Coast to buy his stake in the gold rush. And so he bought a gold mine. He bought the basic equipment, and he went into the gold mine and he started digging, looking for gold. And he was digging for weeks and weeks, and around a couple of months, and he got some gold, and he got a good amount of gold that he could tell that this was a winning mine. And so he closed it all up and went back East Coast and got money from all his friends and family to buy equipment. And so they got a lot of equipment. They came back and put it in. They started digging into the mine further, and they just were able to find a lot of gold. And so they're digging and digging, and at some point the gold just runs out, right? The vein dies. And they dig for a while. They continue digging along. The vein had been going like this, right? And so they continue to dig along. They're like, it's got to be here. It's got to be here. Let's pick it up again. Like maybe there was a hiccup or something. And they kept going. But at some point, after a couple of months, they just gave up. This guy just realized that he had mined all the gold out of this mine, and he had his decent amount of money, and he's out of here. And so he sold all his equipment and the mine to a junk man that was, in the area. And this junk man, the first thing he did when he bought the mine, because he didn't really know much about mining himself, he went and found a geologist, an expert in gold mining and digging for gold, and he asked him to give him some advice. And so this guy came in, looked, he evaluated what had been done by the previous owner, and he looked in, he said, I got it. What they did wrong was what typically happens in a gold mine is the vein goes like this, and then when you find it ends, what you want to do is turn left, because it almost always is turning left, and about 3 feet that way, you'll find it. They dug 3 feet and they found the gold mine, picked it up, and this second owner picked up millions and millions and millions of dollars more from this mine that the first owner missed. Now, the story of Napoleon Hill tells this story in a way that he wants the moral of the story to be, don't give up, right? But the reality is, I don't think that's the right, well, all respect to Napoleon Hill, I don't think that's the right message. Because this guy didn't give up. He kept digging for a couple of months, but he was digging in the wrong direction. If he didn't give up, he would dig all the way to another state before he, ran out of places to dig or something, right? What I want you to understand is that sometimes when you're running into a challenge and you're having some success and then you're having no success, or you can't figure out what to do, you're doing all the right things, or in this case, related to the sales cycle, just pause for a second and get some advice from somebody on the outside. Somebody on the outside could be another business owner that's having success. It could be your local PTAC counselors who work with a lot of businesses. It could be even the government, where you could have a conversation with them saying, hey, I've been doing this kind of stuff to try to get business or support your agency, but I'm not getting any traction, right? Begin to get some guidance for somebody else. And if the first owner of that mine had gotten the right guidance, if he had just stopped and said, you know what, I don't know everything, let me go look to somebody else, then he would have found out that same information the junk man did with minimal effort, right? And so if you understand what I'm talking about, and you understand that sometimes if you get some extra expert advice from the folks that are out there, or me in the GovCon chamber, right? Sometimes you will find that you're only 3 feet from gold. And if you just turn in the right direction, if you just look to the right tasks, you will start finding that gold again. So if that story made sense about you're only 3 feet from gold, put 3 feet from gold into the chat. Let me know you're tracking on that. And it's so cool to look into the chat. I looked over for a second. I'm not always looking at it, but to look, and all I just see is a bunch of I'm a winner, we're winners. I love seeing that because that is the community you're part of. We are all dedicated to our success moving forward. And by extension, we're dedicated to your success as well. Okay, so I want to take the next half of this training, right, and talk about 6 questions you should ask yourself. For those of you who've been coming to my training for a while, these will seem familiar, but one of the things that I keep reminding myself is there's always people here for the first time, and I can never act like we all have been talking about it before first. Second, you hearing the same message over and over again with me telling it kind of a different way is a good thing, because even for myself, when I teach it, I'm like, oh, this is a good piece of advice I can give my customers as I talk. So I'm going to go through 6 questions you should ask yourself to find out where the gold is 3 feet away from you. Okay, so before I ask those questions, or give you the questions that you might want to ask yourself, let me just show the 7-step process so we're all on the same page. So this is the 7-step process for federal revenue success that we created in the GovCon chamber, right? We feel like sometimes people might have overly complicated the government contracting process. I don't believe government contracting, the federal market, is complex or hard. I believe riding a bike is just as hard as federal government. There's skills I have to learn to ride a bike. I have to learn to balance. I have to deal with my fear of the speed. I have to then learn how to steer, and I have to learn how to pedal, right? There's all these things. And if you don't know how to do those, then those are complex and overwhelming. Well, government contracting, sometimes it can be the same thing. And so a parent to a child is giving them confidence, or a friend to a friend, teaching somebody to ride a bike. We give you the confidence and we're there. And hey, you're not going to fall because I'll catch you or something, right? In government contracting, it's that same thing. If you align yourself with other people, like this community, for example, then you will have people who are there to support you. Okay, so the 7-step process is, it begins with research, understanding the customer you're trying to serve, identifying who you can reach out to, so targeting, then beginning to pick up the phone on a regular basis. And when you do those things, you start building relationships that will lead to opportunities that you can write proposals on and win sales. So let me come in and start talking about the 6 questions as it relates to those process steps. I'm a big fan of reverse engineering. So going backwards and using this company that had reached out to me recently that I told you at the beginning of the training, let me use them as an example. So if I look at the process, and the first question I ask myself is, the question I want you to ask yourself, are you writing winning proposals, right? This is a question you want to ask yourself. And a winning proposal is one that the government, if you lose, says, we wish we could have awarded it to you, but these guys won it because they had a little bit more agency experience, or they had a little bit more price discount, right? Not horribly different, but just it was so hard for the government to choose between the winner and you if you lose. That's still a winning proposal. You just didn't win the award, but it's still a winning proposal. So a winning proposal is doing all the right things that are in there. I have a whole different training on how do you determine the criteria for a winning proposal, but ask yourself, are you winning and are you writing winning proposals? And there's a good sign that you're not writing winning proposals if you're not winning at least 1 out of every 4, right? At some point it should go up to like 1 out of every 3, but 1 out of every 4 proposals should win for you. And so if I go to the second question, you should ask yourself that if you're not writing winning proposals, are you pursuing only slam dunk proposals or opportunities, right? Are you only pursuing slam dunk opportunities? Slam dunk opportunities are opportunities that everybody in your company instantly goes, that was written for us. This thing is perfect. We can definitely win this, right? No one is rationalizing why it should be in the pipeline. No one is saying, I don't know, I don't know if we should go after that. Everybody who looks at it in your team is saying, this was perfect. This is what we've been waiting for. That's a slam dunk opportunity. Those aren't easy to find, right? The best things aren't. Even gold. I talk about the gold mine. Gold isn't just sitting there waiting for you to pick it up off the ground. You have to move away dirt, right? And in government contracting, dirt are opportunities that are not gold, not slam dunk opportunities. And so ask yourself, are you writing slam dunk opportunities or pursuing slam dunk opportunities? And then the third question you want to ask yourself is, do you have and maintain strategic relationships? And this is a huge deal, right? Having and maintaining strategic relationships. There's a couple of different things in that question. First off, having them means you went and got them in the first place. Maintaining them means you're having a regular meeting. You're talking on a regular basis with the people you're teamed with. And whether it's a teammate or whether it's the federal agency, you're having these conversations. And a strategic relationship means this relationship just didn't happen out of the fly because you met them at some conference or something. It's because they're in an agency that you are targeting, or they work with an agency you're trying to target. It does you no good to have a relationship. And I say this really softly for a second because I want your focus to be on strategic more than the exception here, but it doesn't do you any good to have a relationship with a really nice person at that company that's pursuing a department that's not even in your world. Hey, that's great. Let's stay in touch, but that's not a strategic relationship. That's a good relationship, right? But a strategic relationship is ones that will lead to those slam dunk opportunities within the agency of your choice. And so if you're a SharePoint-based company, you're looking for companies that do something around the realm of where SharePoint could fit in, or they're solidly within the agency that you're looking for, like DHS as an example. And then inside of DHS, the relationships you want, the strategic relationships, obviously are with the small business specialists and some key contracting officers, but it's with program office personnel. Do you know who those people are? So having and maintaining strategic relationships is vital to success. Ask yourself, do I have and maintain strategic relationships? The fourth question that I want you to ask yourself, and this is about outreach, right? As I'm walking back through the 7-step process, are you reaching out to 3 people per day? Right? You can put whatever number you want there, 2, 4. You really don't need more than like 5 people a day because you got a lot of things going on. But are you reaching out to 3 people a day? And when you are, then you will be able to identify how many people you're reaching out to every week, every month, and every year. If you're reaching out to 3 people a day and there's, let's say, 260 business days in a year, then you're reaching out to 600 plus, right? Whatever that is, 700 plus, right? 780, I think, maybe. And so that's a lot of people you're reaching out to. And the reason you're reaching out to those people is because you're trying to build strategic relationships. You cannot have strategic relationships by writing down 10 people's names and then reaching out to them. If you've ever seen me talk about the bell curve, when you think about the bell curve, and let me just show it really quick for those of you who haven't seen it before, when you look at the bell curve, this bell curve says half the people on the right, late majority laggards, will not talk to you. They will not become strategic relationships, right? These people, 50 of them out of 100 are not going to talk to you, right? And then if you back up early majority, these people will not build a strategic relationship with you until they have a lot of needs met on their own. For example, inside of a company or an agency, you might not be able to build a strategic relationship with a CIO until you're inside the wire and you've got some contracts and you're actually seeing her every week or something. Then you can begin to build a strategic relationship, which is fine because then you look at the next and bigger things. But the idea of relationships or any activity is that 2.5% of the people out there are going to respond to your activity. So if you're doing outreach and you're trying to build strategic relationships, if you're doing 2 or 3 calls a day, if you're reaching out to 2 or 3 people a day, then you will begin to identify those people who align with your company, that want to go into the same agency as you, want to work together as strategic partners in success, right? Not formal or legal partners, but just we're strategically committed to helping each other grow, right? And so ask yourself, are you reaching out to 3 people per day? The next question, the 5th question is, do you have a steady and a continuously a steady list of 1 to 200 people to reach out to that are related to your target agency? And what I mean by a steady list is if you call 50 people and that list is coming down, then add 50 people to it. So at any given point, you need to have 100, 200 people on that list. And you want to ask yourself, do we maintain for our company a list of 1 to 200 people to reach out to. These are not your contacts. These are not your existing strategic relationships. These are new people. So I'm working with a customer where I just sent them 80 names that are just 80 names in one particular area within DHS as an example, right? And they can begin to reach out. Well, as they go forward, they can keep adding more names. They can identify other people who are doing work in the data side or the information technology side, security side, et cetera. And so this list, when you have this list, only by having this list will you be able to do that question ahead of time. Are you reaching out to 3 people a day? Well, you need 3 people in your list. And so you need to maintain a list. If you don't have a list, how will you know who to call tomorrow? And the 6th question, and I'm going to reverse these in a second. The 6th question is, do you know your customer as well as they know themselves? I've talked about this in other training that research is the first step of the 7-step process for federal success. And when you look at research, the whole idea of it is to know that agency as well as they know themselves. Right? These people who work in the agency only know the job that they're doing. Sometimes they know a little, their job involves a little bit more, so they know a little bit more. But you have the ability to look across all of DHS or all of Navy, right? Or all of Department of Education and really begin to understand who are the players, how do they work together? You can read their strategic documents. You can attend their industry days. By doing these things, you will begin to understand that agency as well as anybody who works there. And if you're committed to selling into that agency, then you want to know that. And so when you think about 3 feet from gold and you're only 3 feet from gold, right? I want you to understand that you need to ask yourselves these 6 questions. Do you know the customer as well as they know themselves? If you do, then identify a list of 1 to 200 people that are related to that target agency, right? Do you have a list of 1 to 200 people that you can reach out to? The 4th one, going back, right, 654, is are you reaching out to 3 people a day? Well, you can't do that if you don't know the agency in order to build the list, which enables you to reach out, which then allows you to build strategic relationships. And from those relationships with the government or teaming partners, be able to identify slam dunk opportunities, hear about slam dunk opportunities and pursue them, which will then allow you to be able to write winning proposals. And so all of this comes together, and I'm hoping you're tracking on all this activity that I'm writing and these questions. But if it makes sense, put 6 questions into the chat. Let me know you understand this, that I want you to ask these 6 questions that are in there. And so just tracking on my time, right? In this training, I talked about being 3 feet from gold. One thing you can do today, like I just talked about, for more success in the federal market is just ask yourself, ask your team, bring these 6 questions back to your team and say, hey, let me just ask 6 questions, right? Ask yourself these questions. And if you do that, I believe you will begin to identify ways to help you have more success in the federal market. I believe you will be able to find that gold vein that has shifted over to the left 3 feet and be able to start digging more and more, right? So if you found today's training valuable, do me a favor, please become a sustaining member. We always appreciate that. And remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I hope you have a great weekend because that is part of the process. I'll see you.